Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to this wonderful Conscious Cafe Global presentation tonight. My name's Gina Lazenman. I'm going to be your host. And if you come to us tonight as one of Pam Gregory's community and have never joined us at Conscious Cafe before, then a special welcome. You can find out more on consciousscafe.org. We're an organisation that we raise consciousness. We meet as community groups. We started in London. Judy Piatkas of the Piatkas Publishing Company started the first groups in London. We met to share ideas, to meet, to connect in community, as I say, raising consciousness. And those groups have spread. We have groups in Basel, Geneva, Canterbury, New Forest. I host one in Skipton, the north of England. And we meet online, and here we are, particularly since COVID. We got online and we have large groups meet. And tonight, it's wonderful to welcome Pam Gregory. I have to say, one of Britain's most loved astrologers. She's very active on YouTube, regularly putting out the most incredible insights and wisdom for the new moon, the full moon, and all the planetary alignments. She's written 2 books. You Don't Really Believe in Astrology, Do You? That's an interesting title. And How to Co-Create Using the Secret Language of the Universe. And she's been a student and a practitioner and teacher of astrology for 50 years, nearly 50 years. Let's just bring that age down a bit. And what she's been sharing about this coming year is incredible. I think quantum leap and dramatic must be her favorite words. They're appearing all the time. And so I encourage you, if you're not familiar with Pam's work, to go back to her YouTube channel and watch the videos. They are full of brilliant tips and wisdom. And what Pam's been saying is we need to raise our frequency in order to handle these extraordinary times. And that's what she's going to share with us tonight. So Pam, I'm going to say, if we were in a room, we would be applauding, but we're going to wave and give you a lovely Conscious Cafe welcome.
Hi everyone, love to you all. Great to see you. It's really nice actually, because I very rarely, as most of you know, do live sessions. I know this is on Zoom, but it's still kind of live, so it will be interactive, and that would be really great. And there's virtually no astrology in this tonight. I'm talking in very practical ways, because I know in the videos I'm often talking about astrology, which for many people is kind of like Hebrew. You don't follow that. It takes a lot of years of understanding that language, and also sometimes it can be quite esoteric. So tonight I'm going to be practical. I wanted to give you 10 steps really that every single person can do, that are easy, free, all of us can do, to raise our frequency, because that is really vital, particularly in 2024 and moving onwards. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I just really wanted to clarify the terms consciousness, frequency, and vibration, because particularly frequency and vibration are kind of kicked around in the spiritual world as being the same thing. And in a sense, in the spiritual world, they are interchangeable. But if we take it back to the physics, they're a bit different. So firstly, just to deal with consciousness, the whole universe is one consciousness. It is one consciousness, one living divine organism, if you like. And it isn't so much that we have consciousness, we are consciousness. We are consciousness itself. We are fractals of source. And whether you speak to brilliant cosmologist, Dr. Jude Currivan, who's also quite a mystic, or whether I'm talking to Professor Robert Temple, who's an expert on plasma and the universe and the galaxies, they say very clearly, this is one consciousness, and you are expressing that consciousness and adapting it and changing it in every moment, depending on your frequency. So if I was looking at frequency and vibration in terms of physics, frequency is the rate at which energy vibrates. It can actually be measured in hertz, whereas vibration is the intensity or the amplitude of that frequency. The amplitude is the strength. So frequency is the kind of up and down measurement that you can measure on certain scientific instruments, but vibration is the force that you put behind it. And the force, in a way, is very important, how intensely we feel a particular emotion. So the higher it is, the higher your frequency, the more powerful your energy becomes, and the more powerful you are as a manifester. Now, Tesla, wonderful Tesla, a great quote from him I'd like to start with. If we want to attract something into our lives, we need to match its frequency. And I passionately believe in every cell of my body, everything you attract in life is a frequency match to where you're at in frequency. It's always a frequency match, every single thing. It's actually, I think, much easier to see this in other people than see it in yourselves. I can so easily see it in clients and friends. And of course, you have to be very gentle with that. I think it's harder to see with yourself, but nevertheless, everything is a frequency match. Now, yes, of course, our frequency is conditioned by the collective consensus. It's conditioned by our soul contracts. It's conditioned by our karma. And yet we still have great latitude in how we can adjust our frequency. You know, this is where all my work is going. It's going beyond the astrology to say, okay, how can we really start to become powerful co-creators in our lives? So thoughts are electrical impulses, and they produce emotions or feelings which are magnetic waves. And together in combination, they form your electromagnetic broadcast, if you like, your electromagnetic frequency. And it is the emotions that are the most important. They have to be preceded by the thought. Everything begins with a thought, but then that goes into the emotion. And the emotions are the most powerful because they're magnetic, and therefore they magnetize a particular event or experience or reality to you. So the feelings and the emotions are the most powerful. And, you know, it really reminds me, thinking of frequency, now, wonderful thought leader Wayne Dyer, and one of his most famous sayings was that it isn't the phrase we use all the time, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it, but rather I'll see it when I believe it, because the belief has to come first, and then you get the reality. So everything in your life, I believe, even though you're including some collective consensus, even though you know, it's your soul contract, your karma, whatever, everything in your life cascades from your frequency. Everything. That's where everything begins. And again, I believe that in every cell of my body, of the tens of thousands of charts I've done, and, you know, been around the track a few decades, it is absolutely to do with your frequency. And we are becoming more aware of this with Pluto moving into Aquarius. If you think the two jaggedy lines of Aquarius, they are very much about our electromagnetic frequency, very much so. And that's why this is coming up into common parlance so much more now. Frequency will become the new currency. Everybody will be talking about frequency. And essentially, if we look at it as a simple polarity, you will either be feeling love or fear. And those are two very different future timelines. You know, if you're feeling in fear, you know, for a start, before I even get to the 10 steps, turn off the news. Please turn off the news. Even if you think you're just watching it passively, you're actually in a kind of slightly open, receptive, and therefore easy to hypnotize state. Please turn off the news. As many of you know, I have a large plant now where my television was 4 years ago, and it's so much healthier all around. So you are either feeding in every moment essentially the fear timeline or the love timeline, and be aware of when that's happening. I've often used the analogy of, you know, we're in the theatre now, we're at the stage in our history where the theatre scenery is collapsing and the actors are talking louder and louder so the audience won't notice that the scenery is collapsing. We are absolutely at that stage in our history now, and they will speak louder this year. They will speak louder. So we don't notice that the scenery is absolutely on the vapors and coming apart at the seams. So recognize that's what's happening. It's louder, but it's more hollow. But it is going to get louder because there's a sense of desperation out there, and I'm sure you all understand my meaning. So, but fear takes us on a very, very different future timeline, future trajectory than love. And what all my work is about now is frequency, well, astrology, frequency, but encouraging people to stay on this love higher timeline. whatever is happening in the world, it doesn't matter, because what's important is your internal state of being. That's what defines everything in your reality. Okay, so step number one is to firstly recognize and accept how you are feeling in the moment right now. And even put post-it notes around your house, which I've recommended many times, kitchen cupboards, bathroom mirror. Recognize where you are at, because if you are going through a personal crisis, you're splitting up with your partner, or loved one has died, or a pet has died, or, it's a big deal right now. You can't just kind of barrel over it. You have to sit with that. You have to honor that grief process and be with it and let that move through your body. And I think that's really important. But generally, most of us aren't in that sort of extreme situation. But also thank that person. If you're in say a difficult relationship, be it with your partner, your spouse, your parent, your whoever, neighbor, boss, whoever, really recognize the part you've played, because it's never just 100% their fault and 0 yours, even though that would be great to think so, wouldn't it? Because we're the perfect white angel and they're pure evil. We have had a part to play in every single relationship that we are involved in. So in that situation, one thing you can certainly do is you can write that person a letter. If you're not able to speak to them openly, write that person a letter, honor your feelings with that, and then burn the letter. Release it to the universe, having got it out of your system, having expressed all your feelings in the letter. And other very helpful things to do here, we're still on step one, by the way, very helpful other things to do here are tapping. If you don't know about emotional freedom technique, you can learn it in about 5 minutes in a demo online. Really helpful to shift emotion, shift stuck energy out of the body. Everybody should have that in their toolkit. It's so simple and so easy to learn. I would say also forgive yourself for the part you played. Forgive yourself for the part you played. And yes, send them love. Send them love for being, I have a very difficult neighbor, which many of you know. I constantly will soften the dynamic of that by sending her love. And it honestly does help. Send them love. And even though, you might be hissing and it's the last thing you want to do, it does soften the dynamic. And I can see Jackie White is on the call. Wonderful, Jackie. Really recommend everybody has in their toolkit Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer. I don't know if Jackie has a slightly different version. The version I use is I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And Jackie some people do it the other way around. I'm not quite sure what Jackie does, but nevertheless, it absolutely works miracles. And you think it can't, but roll it around your head like a mantra, directing it at the person or the situation or whatever that is difficult for you, and it really softens the dynamic. And also direct it to yourself. Forgive yourself for the part you played. So that's really number one, I'd say. Number two, as well as checking in regularly, make a choice to be happy. Because unless you're going through a really big personal crisis like, death or separation from someone, the daily grind and grunge and awfulness of the world, the hideous war and death and disease, just the absolute overwhelm of what we're living through right now. It's very easy to get back into victim consciousness, which of course is what is being encouraged. You stay in victim consciousness. And one of the ways you can raise your frequency and get out of victim consciousness and start to step into empowerment is recognize all through your day, you are making choices. Instead of just doing things, say, I am choosing to make a cup of tea right now. I am choosing to go out for a walk. I am choosing to call my friend. I'm choosing to do an hour's work now. And the fact you say you're choosing puts you in the seat of empowerment rather than, you know, you're just being kind of buffeted through your day by more awfulness. And notice the micro decisions in your day. Should I wear the blue dress or the red dress? There's tiny micro decisions. You know, what shall I do with my hair today? You know, because I have kind of toilet brush hair. So as micro decisions you make in a day, notice those, because be conscious of those. And also really, really importantly, be conscious of being conscious. Still on step 2 here. And notice when you go unconscious. And by that, I mean, when you go on that grunge run of, God, I've got so much to do today, and so said that to me, and I'm so cross about it, I've got that tech issue, and God, I've got so much shopping to do, those phone calls, you know, I'm not good enough, young enough, pretty enough, never going to work for me, always been the, you know, that grunge, that negative self-talk that we go on. Be aware of you are going unconscious. You're going on your habitual negative thought run. And so you've almost got to become a kind of thought policeman, which is where the post-it notes around the house really help, because you get into a habit of being conscious, as it were, reminding yourself, you know, where am I at? What's my state of being? What am I thinking about? What's my emotional state? Constantly. And if it's just a regular daily grunge, as I call it, if I'm on one of my morning walks in nature and I'm wasting that magnificent time by that kind of, you know, God, I've got so much to do today, I'm never going to get through the day, I've got so much to, which is my common grunge, you know, negative self-run. Flick it. In that situation, just flick it. Think, how lucky am I to be walking in the woods with today a blue sky? I mean, that's really something to be grateful for. It's not raining. You know, flick it to be joyful. Flick it to simple things: birdsong, blue sky, sunshine, nature, the smell of the moss, you know, hug a tree, simple, happy thoughts. And be aware of that very simple flicking technique, because it really gets you into a habit of a higher frequency by default, a higher frequency. And, you know, the constant gratitude thing really, really, you know, I'm so grateful to live in, you know, in a rural area. I'm so grateful to be in nature, so grateful to have the choice to be able to take this hour out every day. Grateful, grateful, grateful. And try and, as part of this, we're still on step 2, surround yourself with positive, happy people who leave you better than they found you. One of my principles in life is I try and leave everybody better than I found them. And I think that's a great principle. So try and surround yourself with people like that, rather than people who leave you worse than they find you. And observe that, notice that. You know, you might have had friends for donkey's years, but start to observe, gosh, you know, I've spent an hour with this person and now, you know, whoa, I'm a bit dragged down. Or, gosh, we laughed all the way. We laughed all the way. And how much that uplifts you. You know, I've got a friend I've had for 35 years, and she is on a different planet to me. She has no idea what I do for my work. In a million years, she wouldn't know what to ask. But we've dog walked together every week for 35 years. And she is such a funny person, and I adore her. So, you know, people don't fulfill necessarily all of you. People fulfill parts of you. And I adore her loyalty. I adore her sense of humor. I adore her friendship. And so celebrate that when there's an aspect of that person that you really love, and be grateful for that. I hope I'm making sense here. So step 3, really start to live intentionally, much more as we move through these times. That will lift your frequency as well. Focus on your intention. Now, people constantly say, how do I set an intention? Well, the most important thing is that you set it in the present tense, as if it were already happening. Because if you say, you know, I want so-and-so, or when I have so-and-so, you're constantly chasing it away to the future. So it is already happening. You know, I am already in perfect, radiant health. I'm already a very happy person. I am safe. I am free. things that I am already easily attracting, the perfect job, the perfect home, the perfect partner. I'm already, and have the feeling, remember, feeling is the most important. Have the feeling, many of you will have been pregnant at some point in your life. That feeling that you know the baby is coming. You absolutely know the baby is coming. And so it's that feeling of, it's present tense. You know, I am in this pregnancy and it's happening, and all of the joy and expectation that comes from that. So step into that feeling of, I am already in the perfect job. I am already in the perfect relationship or the perfect house, because it's the feeling that will magnetize it to you. If there's a distance between I'm just thinking it and maybe it will, maybe it won't, if I get lucky, you're not going to magnetize it. If you can step into the feeling, it will come to you much, much more quickly. And I remember, gosh, it was way back in 2007, and my mother passed away, and she left me a small inheritance. And it'd been my dream to own a small house in rural France. And so from that point on, I said, right, I'm going to make real my dream. And I filled my house with colors of France, you know, that electric blue, and photos from France, and just all kinds of things that remind, every place I went in, every room I went in the house, I thought of France. I imagined myself walking in the mountains and shopping at the local patisserie and, you know, perfecting my French. And I just stepped into, I am already living that right now. And within an incredibly short space of time of doing that, maybe sort of 2-3 weeks after I started doing that, I saw an ad for a small house in France, buying off plan. And many of you know this story because it led me on a huge kind of magic carpet ride involving a past life as a Cathar 800 years ago. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But the fact is, I magnetized that experience to me, the French house, in an incredibly short period of time, because I was living in my daydreaming, imagining moments when I was in the shower, cleaning my teeth, preparing supper. I was stepping into that French life. A really great book for this as well is I think you can still get it. It's quite an old book now, but it was such a short, simple, but brilliant book called The Cosmic Ordering Service, which had, you know, it's a really funny title. It's a very funny book by a German lady called Barbara Mohr, M-O-H-R. Really simple read. And she uses the analogy of when you're in a restaurant and you've put an order into the kitchen, and you don't keep going into the kitchen to say, I'm worried, you know, you're not going to deliver my meal. You know, is it here yet? No, because the is it here yet dismisses your order as well. And fretting with the chef, I'm not sure you're going to do it just, you know, the way I explained it. You know, the doubt and the fretting. Yeah, the author's name is Barbara Mohr, M-O-H-R. I'm going from memory because this is about 20-30 years ago. It's a great little book. Yeah, that's it, I think. Yeah. So live with intention, and link to that before, this is step 4 now, with any interaction I have of any kind, whether I'm just meeting a friend, whether it's a phone call, particularly if I'm doing a video, this kind of interaction, before anything at all, I will set an intention. Let this be for my highest good, the highest good of all involved, and the highest good of all. So before this video call tonight, I said, let this be for my highest good, the highest good of everybody involved in this Zoom call tonight, and the highest good of all, i.e. feed it back to the collective. Because if you do that every time, you know, we are each drops in the ocean, we're feeding it back to the collective. Yes. Next, number and remember, by the way, I think it was Lynn McTaggart who said this, that altruism is the highest state of being. Altruism is the highest state of being. And the more you can live with any sense of I'm in service to others, the better those intentions will work. You know, if you're not just doing it to make a profit for you, because we're moving out of those old Capricorn days now, and moving into Aquarian days, when whatever you're doing can help others, then it works even better. Number 5, visualize your goals. And the more detailed you can make those, the better. Activate your senses. You know, when I was talking about dreaming about the French house, I saw the colors, I put them all over the house. I smelt, you know, the French bread baking in the morning, the French coffee brewing, textures, everything. You know, imagine that you are living it. If there's a baby on the way, what it's going to be like to have that baby or that puppy or whatever it is arriving, how you're going to love it and nurture it and cuddle it, and you know, you're preparing for that event, because you absolutely have no doubt it's going to come. Don't wobble. Put your spiritual blinkers on. If that's what you want, don't wobble. Don't think, oh, whoops, a daisy over here, you know, whoops, World War III, here we go. Spiritual blinkers. We are creators. That's what we're here to do. So, yes. And so number 6, actually take the action steps towards that goal. For instance, if you have a baby on the way, buy the baby clothes, buy the cot, buy the pushchair. There's a puppy coming, buy the basket, buy the puppy food, buy the lead, you know, take action, simple action steps, because you absolutely know that's going to happen. Remember, you have no doubt. All of this is raising your frequency because you're following through the practical steps of, this is going to get me to the place I want to be. So each of these steps I'm outlining is raising your frequency, because you're not wobbling, you're creating. Remember, tomorrow is invisible. We're creating it. Number 7 is be patient, trust and let go. Once you've set that co-intention, you've visualized it, you are taking your action steps, yep, day by day, no panic, no stress, no doubt. You just know it's going to happen, and let go, because the universe often has a way smarter idea than you have. It delivers something better so often than you've already imagined. You know, so yes, take the action, but then number 7, be patient, trust, and let go. No attachment. Try and soften everything as you move through life, so you're not controlling as much, because then the little ego comes into control, and the universe is way smarter than we are to deliver what we really need in our lives. Number 8 is, and I talk about this so often, is to live from the inside out, not the outside in. And that is very easy to say, but once you get into the habit of it, you really feel that shift. You really, really feel that shift in a big way. In that I start my days with, you know, as soon as my feet hit the floor, I'm going to dominate my day with joy. I'm going to dominate my day with love. Whatever happens in that day, you know, I'm going to dominate it with that particular emotion that I choose, or compassion, or peace. It doesn't have to be excitable. But I decide what kind of a reality I want to live in that day. I decide. And when you do that, there's such a life force that comes from you, and you're much less buffeted by, you know, the day-to-day events, or, you know, I was paying for petrol down at my local garage today, and they've always got the radio on, and you know, I've said this before, but I'm always astonished that I used to listen to that. You know, I think, how could I possibly have listened to that? And you know, with interest, because I used to be really, really interested in current affairs, because that fed my newsletters of proof of the pudding, of how the astrology is playing out, and yet, you know, another thing has happened in the world, and that's perfectly expressing the astrology. And now I don't want to know, because I'm determined that we create it. We collectively come together as humanity in love, and we create a much better world. This is a very big year, 2024, for us to step into our sovereignty and our power. It's so important. So all of these steps are going to help you do that. And I think, I think one of the most useful examples I gave with this in terms of living from the inside out is, well, first of all, as I say, switch off the external stimuli of, and also people send you stuff all day, don't they? I mean, people send me stuff all day long. I must get sent about 40 videos a day. There's no way I can look at them all. But if within even a few seconds, I feel them taking my frequency down, I will just stop, whatever the information is. Because the information, which many of us are familiar with anyway, the information is not going to help us raise our frequency. Your state of being is, and you control that. So we can do the information to death. And I'm sure on this call, there are many of us who've done the information to death. We really have in the last 4 years. We've been, up and down the drain pipe with that. But now you know it, and there's no more need to indulge. The next step, which is where we are at on this call, is, okay, what are we going to do about it? How do we raise our frequency to create a better, more loving, more compassionate, abundant, and peaceful world? That's what my 15-minute meditations are about on a Sunday evening. And people are having the most extraordinary experiences on those. Some people, and there's telepathy going on. Some people are seeing the Sufi dancers spinning and creating a light that spins and encircles the whole earth. Someone last Sunday, and other people reported this too, and she was in floods of tears, actually. She said she cried all the way through the meditation, that as she started off, other people were joining her, the animals were joining her, the birds were joining her, going over mountains. I'm so goosebumpy now, over mountains and rivers, and they were just, and the whole of creation were joining her in love, in this, she called it an army of love. An army of love, a tsunami of love. We are doing that for free, for absolutely zero, nothing. 15 minutes of our time on a Sunday evening. So be determined to live from the inside out. And so once you start to do that, you'll really start to feel a shift of, I'm in charge of my life. I run my life, and start to notice all the tiny little changes in the dynamics of relationships in your day. The difficult neighbor, the difficult boss, the difficult sibling. As you start to live with love, live with joy, live with compassion, notice how the dynamics in those particularly the difficult relationships, change, because you really do start to know. So do it as an experiment. But I think one of the clearest examples I can give with living from the inside out, imagine that you're looking in a mirror and you've got a really glum face. You don't go to the mirror to alter the glum face. You have to smile in order to change your reflection in the mirror. That is a great example of living from the inside out. You have to make the inner shift to see the shift in your outer reality in the mirror. You can't change the smile in the mirror. Am I making sense here? And I think that's quite a powerful analogy, because so often we think we've got to change all the problems out there. The war, the children, the disease, the death, the misery, the poverty, the overwhelm. It's just absolutely overwhelming if we think of those thousands of problems. What can we as a single individual possibly do to change the world? We can't. However, if we each come together, raising our frequency in love, joy, etc., then we are a powerhouse when we come together. So living from the inside out is a big one. And with that, if you can develop a really clear sense of purpose in terms of why you're here, and it may simply be, I'm here to be a smile millionaire. And that may sound really, really cheesy, and I don't care. Because if you decide you're going to be a smile millionaire and every single person that you interact with, you smile at them, and just watch the ripple effect that has, and people in shops and stores and the local garage, and just watch how everything lightens, the frequency rises for you and for that person, and it ripples out through his day, her day, your day, whatever. Be a smile millionaire. That could be your purpose in this life right now. That's a terrific purpose, all for free. You don't have to read a book, go on a course. Number 9, I would say, is milk it. Really milk it. And by that, I mean any positive feeling, frequency that you have. Say you're waking, I do this a lot actually, because I love it. When you're waking up in the morning and it's super cozy, you know, you're as cozy as a bug in a rug. And before you open your eyes, just milk that feeling. Gosh, I'm so lucky. This mattress is so soft. This pillow is so soft. I feel so cozy. You know, wow, you know, almost like a child. Milk it, milk that emotion. And equally, when you're out in nature, and I do this frequently with my friends and drive them bonkers, I think, you know, I'll say, particularly as we get into spring, I'll say, look how green it is. It's just, you know, and they all kind of play it back to me, you know, look how green it is. But almost like a child, look how green it is. Can you feel the life force? Can you feel the electricity in the trees and the mosses and the birds and the slugs and the snails and everything? All the life force is coming back to life after winter, particularly a very long and excessively wet winter in the UK. So have that feeling of awe, have that feeling of wow when you're in nature, and milk those simple feelings, really simple feelings of, wow, this is so beautiful. It's so warm, it's so cozy if you're still in bed, or it's so beautiful, it's so exciting, it's so vibrant, all this new life starting to happen. And feel excited with nature. And also, I think sort of blend with nature. Blend with nature. So you try and soften your perception so you are at one with nature, rather than, you know, I'm an observer watching this. This is very Lemurian, I think, that you are just, you know, you soften so you're just blending with the feeling of all of that, because we are nature. You know, we're part of, we can't separate ourselves. You probably are aware that in 1953, there was a chap called Professor Schumann, and he decided to do an experiment where he took a group of volunteer students and put them in a lead bunker. And what the lead bunker did was to completely insulate them from the energy frequencies of the Earth. And as many of you will know, the Earth has a very powerful electromagnetic frequency. It's called the heartbeat of the Earth, the Schumann resonance, it's now called after Professor Schumann. It's normally 7.83 hertz. And when you are in relaxed, contented, creative, you know, good state mode, your frequency is 7.83 hertz. You completely match the Earth. That's why bare feet on the grass is so great, because you are, the Earth is helping you come to that happy alpha, you know, contented, healthy default state of 7.83 hertz. And by the way, just, you know, as a tangent, if you haven't checked out what bare feet on the grass on the Earth does for you, I've talked about it many times, go to groundology.com, groundology.co.uk, and just look at the information on there, where they've taken blood from an average person and put it under the microscope, and it's often very clumpy and unhealthy. Person sits with their feet on the grass for 45 minutes, and then they take a blood sample again. The blood is completely different. It's much more fluid, it's much more viscous, much more healthy. Yeah, that's earthing, same thing. Earthing, grounding, exactly the same thing. So the physiological effect. And this affects many different biomarkers in your body, of your cortisol levels. It boosts your immune system, as well as changing a lot of your blood markers as well. So just doing that helps you to change your physiology, increase your frequency, but get this feeling of I'm one with nature. Remember the circadian rhythms. You know, we go to sleep based on that, and we wake up based on the circadian rhythm. Anyway, back to Professor Schumann and the lead bunker. The volunteer students were continually being marked for their health by doctors. And within about 2 or 3 days, quite a short time, they started to become physically and mentally very unwell, very agitated, very anxious, you know, physiologically they weren't well. And so what Professor Schumann did, unbeknown to the volunteer students, was he had a device which reintroduced 7.83 hertz, the Schumann resonance, back into the bunker. And within hours, all of the students got back to normal with their health, their mental health, their physical health. He didn't even tell them he was doing that. So from that point on, that heartbeat of the earth became known as the Schumann resonance, based on Professor Schumann's work. So connecting with nature, and particularly grounding, earthing, same thing, different word, bare feet on the grass, bare feet on the earth as often as you can. Don't wear shoes because rubber insulates. What a good invention that was. That will really help you get this sense of blending with the earth and being at one with all of it. Number 10 is really, really, really simple. But I wanted to make all of these steps so practical, so easy that every single person could do them every day. So number 10 is just a list of things we can do in any moment to raise our frequency. Dancing, singing, toning, chanting, laughing, hugging a loved one, spouse, pet, child, parent, tree, hugging something, being determined to find joy in every day. Because we've lived through exceptionally challenging times in the last 4 years, and it would have been very easy, and I think many of us did initially, to, dip into gloom and doom. But this is not a dress rehearsal, because this is our life. You know, we can't allow that to happen. We still have to find a way to find joy every day. And if we do, we're not only helping ourselves and everybody we interact with, we are also feeding back to the collective. It's one of the best possible things we can do to feed our drop in the ocean back to the collective and raise the collective frequency too. And I mentioned this in a recent video I did. I think I called it Another Ramble, the power of the invisible. But there is so much evidence now at what raising your frequency does. Look at Lynn McTaggart's work, particularly. I think she's the absolute queen of intention. I refer to her many times. On her website, she actually has a page called Evidence, where she has the evidence of frequency, setting intentions, group meditations, etc. She's one of the key places to go to. Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, I could talk about for hours in terms of when you raise your frequency, how you literally, and I've witnessed this many, many times. I've been in about 14 advanced workshops and just witnessed miracle after miracle. When people are able to raise their frequency by going into a long, sort of 3 to 4 hour meditation, and yes, it wasn't the first time, they've had some practice with that, but literally genetic conditions, terminal conditions, paralysis, you know, before your very eyes start to happen. It is just phenomenal, because when you raise your frequency, not only are you altering the biochemistry of every cell in your body, as Dr. Bruce Lipton says, and he talks a great deal about this too, you are rewriting yourself back to the blueprint. You are rewriting yourself back to the blueprint. So frequency does all of these things. Now, and also remember on the opposite side, that whatever you are, whatever we resist persists. So the more we resist a situation, the stronger it becomes. And so, I've talked about this a lot in my videos, and people give me a hard time about it because they say, yeah, but what about? Well, what we have to do, I'm with Buckminster Fuller, because he said, I really am, because he said that we don't fight against what is, if the what is not what we want. We create something so much better that the what is becomes irrelevant, just irrelevant, because everybody starts to think, hey, that looks way better over there. I'm going to have some of that. I'm not going to stay in this misery. And we create this momentum, which is the fastest way to get out of this mess we're in right now, to create a much more loving world. And it's happening. It's happening all over the world. If you're aware of things like Stand in the Park groups, they are global. If you're not, they have a website with locations. They have a Facebook page with locations. Every group is different depending on the individuals that make it up. I'm in one. It's a very strong, vigorous group. Every single person in that group is different. Every single person has a different piece of the puzzle. Every single person is doing something positive to create a new world. Do that kind of thing. Or the People's Food and Farming Alliance is another kind of group endeavor. But if we just keep on fighting, essentially within the same system, we are energizing what we don't want. And so, I once said in a video about hashtag starve out the scary, love in the good. And that is really very closely following how quantum physics works. Again, the Buckminster Fuller, what we do is pour all of our energy into creation of something amazing. And people follow, the momentum builds. Because if we keep fighting what is, we have gone around that hamster wheel for hundreds and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So that's why I personally feel it's so important to go beyond and create something very, very different, because our reality is so much more malleable than we believe. I don't know if you saw in a video I referenced a brilliant TED talk. And if you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend that everybody in the world sees it. It's an old TED talk now. It was by a lady called Jill Bolte Taylor, B-O-L-T-E, B for Bertie. And she was a brain specialist, ironically, and she had a stroke on the left side of her brain. So only the right side of her brain was operating. And in this kind of 20-minute TED talk, she tells the story of what it's like just to live in your right brain. Recognizing she understood what was happening. She understood because she initially said, wow, this is really cool. I'm having a stroke. She's just, incredible. But she understood the power of our right brains in creating the power of the invisible. And we have always in our lives created from the invisible. Everybody always has for all eternity. We just haven't recognized it until these very tough last 4 years, when we've started to think, do you know what, this isn't working so well for me. We've got to create something different. So what is the fastest, most efficient, most free, most easy way that we can do that? And that's exactly what I hope I'm talking about this evening, because everything manifests from the invisible. And again, I've mentioned this before, but if you fly through your body with a camera, taking photographs all the time as you go, you only have 0.0000001% matter. Your solidity is an illusion. So that's after the dot, there's 6 zeros and a 1. So, and that's kind of crazy, but Jill Bolte Taylor, in her experience of the stroke, explains that, tells that story of how that felt. So our reality is way more malleable than we think. And to quote Dr. David Hawkins, somebody I I love. He developed the map of consciousness that many of you are familiar with. He said the universe is energy, vibrational energy. All energy vibrates. All matter is energy. All matter, i.e. you and me, is energy that is slowed down enough so we can see it and touch it. And it gives this illusion of tangibility. So there's a spectrum of density in our world. And the more you are in fear, you are literally denser. You're literally denser because you're more particle and less wave. The more you are in high frequency, in love, you are more wave and less particle, which gives you greater potential to create something very, very different with your high frequency in all the ways we've talked about. And I've been having a couple of conversations with Dr. Jude Curran, the cosmologist who understands the physics of the universe, the physics of creation. And what she said was very interesting. I thought it was called chaos theory, but she said it's called systems theory, that when a system, i.e. the world as we have it right now, is in such a mess that everything is in chaos, that is where it has the greatest potential to form into something else. It's like the plasticine, the modeling clays become much softer, much more malleable. It has because it's all breaking down and jumbling and all over the place, it has the greatest potential to create into a much, much higher state of being. And we do it by raising our frequency in all the ways we've talked about. And what's really happening, if we look at the physics of it, is we're actually, with our own frequency, now we've got to a high level, of course, going through all these steps, we are dancing, we are weaving, we are interacting, we are, you know, in this incredible tapestry with the crystalline plasma of the cosmos, weaving this tapestry with our own astrological pattern plus the prevailing astrology. That's what's creating reality tomorrow. Tomorrow's still invisible. We can change tomorrow today. We're changing it right now by being on this call. You are raising your frequency by being on this call. So well done, if you're still hanging on in with me. So, okay, before we just turn it to you guys to go into breakout groups, one of my favorite authors is a Buddhist author called Paul Levy, that some of you may be familiar with. He's Buddhist, but he's very enmeshed in quantum physics. And he said, what we believe to be the real world is a construct of our mind. We believe the world not as it is, but as we are. Not as it is, but as we are, i.e. our belief system, our filter, our lens, and all of us have them, filters the events in the world that come into us to create our reality. So for instance, if you are in a permanent state of fear, because that is very encouraged, of course, in our world, you will filter in, you will allow in fearful experiences, news, events. You know, oh my God, can you believe another thing? And another thing, and another thing, because that's now your filter to allow in. If your filter is my lens on the world is that it is a loving world, you only allow in loving events into your world, loving people, loving experiences, because you've filtered out the rest. You know, it's there, but it's kind of a bit distant. You know what's happening in the world, but it's not front and, you know, it's not right in your face because you've filtered it out. So as we go into breakout groups, I'd like you to really, really be honest with yourselves and say, what is your filter or lens on the world? If you're really honest, because this is going to help you raise your frequency once you recognize this. Is it fearful generally? It's another big scary thing. Is it loving? Is it cynical? Skeptical? Oh, I'm done with all this new age stuff, you know, doesn't work for me, might work for somebody, it's not working. Look at the mess the world's in. And we go back to that. So that's the question. What's your filter or lens on the world? And linked to that, how, if you're honest with yourself, is it creating your day-to-day reality? How is it creating your day-to-day reality with the job you've got, with the relationships you have, your neighbors, your boss, your friends, your family? Because the barometer for your frequency is your external reality. The barometer for your frequency, the measure, the reading of how well you're doing, is your external reality. Not to be too tough. So that is my question for the breakout group.
You know, you talk about joy. I had to buy this book. I just had to. I saw it, and it's so gorgeous. The Little Book of Joy. And I thought, yeah, I need that. And I've just looked at a page, and it said that, you know, FOMO, the fear of missing out. This is a movement, the chief joy officer, the joy of missing out when something cancels. And this is about what you were saying about the reframe. And you go, oh, it's cancelled. No, I've now got more time.
I would get thrilled if something's cancelled.
It's lovely. Okay. I think everybody's back now. I love it when things get cancelled. I do. People are really sorry. And I go, so no problem. I don't think there are any rooms still open. I think we're all back. So I think you're safe to move forward.
Okay. Any questions, Gina, you'd like to, anything coming up in the chat that you need me to answer?
No, at this stage, we haven't given people the opportunity to ask questions.
Okay.
I think people were talking about how much they enjoyed things, but we can
okay.
We can give people the opportunity. You can give a framework for how you might want to question.
Let me just say a few more things, and then maybe let's open it up for any questions at all. So yeah, you know, just remember, and you know, this is often said, but you've really got to step into it, that if you want to see more peace in your reality, you have to feel peace in yourself first. If you want to see more love in your reality, feel more love in yourself first. And once you get into the habit of it, it's very interesting. There's a brilliant book, again, I'd recommend people read, quite an old book again, called Molecules of Emotion by Candace Pert, Candace Pert. And she was a neurobiologist, I think, but she broke new ground with this book, and I think she won a major prize for it. Certainly, her work is very recognized in the work of physics, because what she discovered is that every single emotion has a specific neuropeptide attached to it in the body. Yeah, she was in the movie What the Bleep, absolutely. You know, jealousy has a specific neuropeptide, anger, hate, regret, you know, every tiny emotion has a very specific neuropeptide. And because we can get stuck in certain emotions, we unconsciously become addicted to that particular neuropeptide, and we don't even realize it. And what happens is, let's say it's regret. Let's say, you know, all of my life has been one big regret, you know, the whole thing's been a failure. So because we get addicted to that particular neuropeptide, it operates in a feedback loop, so that a bigger and bigger percentage of our neural network becomes addicted to that neuropeptide of regret. So unless you catch it, there's an automatic, unconscious, repeating, building, cumulative process of, I regret everything in my life. Am I being clear here? Am I making sense? Mm-hmm. So every specific neuropeptide has a specific, every emotion has a specific neuropeptide. And that's really worth knowing, because if you're in fear and you watch the news every night, then a bigger and bigger percentage of your neural network is predisposed to just suck up that fear. And that's why you've got to kind of cut it out of your reality and say, no, I am going to take control, and I'm going to live in love. And gradually, you will shift the chemistry of your brain, literally, from fear to love. But inevitably, we're well aware there are two big, broad timelines ahead of us. And there is a bifurcation, there is a split right now. So you are either in fear, you're following a timeline that I think is much more technological, much more synthetic. But if you're in love, we are actually creating higher and higher timelines all the time that have never been known on this earth before. There's more light on this earth than we have ever had before. And this is really exciting for where we're going. And once we can shift from being reactive, as we've been all our lives, because we've been taught, dare I even say programmed to be so, we become proactive, then the whole game changes. You change your focus, you change the game. And so once we really get a grip of this and know all of the things that are operating in our favor, like Rory Duff's work, that by the end of 2024, all of the Earth's energy lines are going to come into harmony for another 200 years of peace. It's the end of the Kali Yuga cycle, the age of Kali Yuga, where we start to move up back towards the golden age. If you heard my Aries equinox video, it's very exciting that it links with some of the work of Greg Braden, that it appears that we are in the process of reactivating our 24th chromosome for the first time in 200,000 years. And that 24th chromosome is the one that is connected to the stars, the one that is connected to our multidimensionality, the one that is connected to our Lemurian lifetime. And so there is so much, whether you look at the astrology that I bang on about all the time, the astronomy, the cosmology, the Kali Yuga cycle, the energy lines of the earth, the photon belt, the ingredients for our evolution of the solar flares, the 24th chromosome being reactivated, you know, whichever slice of the pie you look at it, there is so much helping us on this, in this world. So such a wave of evolutionary process and purpose happening for us, that we just have to ride that wave. We just have to allow and be open and be in a state of love, and it will carry us forward. And the more we can link with like-minded people, and particularly coming together in things like meditations, because they magnify the group energy, we are living in a very exciting time. But just stay away from fear. Whatever you do, stay away from fear. However big and scary, you know, little green men are arriving, you know, World War III, stay away from fear. How do you even know that's true? How do you even know any of that's true? Mm-hmm. Believe in yourself, believe in us as a community, us as a collective, and we are really in the process of changing the world. And we have done it on this call tonight. We have raised our frequency.
I'm going to pass some questions to you, Pam.
Yep.
The lines maybe. Did I understand correctly that our emotions, feelings determine the strength of our vibration?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. A question about pets. Can we influence our pets with, say, living intentionally? Can I say mantras for my dog's health, for example, or other people and family?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And your dog will pick up on your energy like lightning. We know they do. We know if you're sad, they instantly know and come comfort you. So yes, in fact, we infect every living being with our energy, whether we're aware of it or not. There's actually an instrument called a magnetoencephalograph, and it measures your frequency outside your brain. Outside your brain. That is proof that we are broadcasting our frequency. We are infecting everybody around us. It isn't just in our heads. So we have a spiritual responsibility, because we are infecting everybody and every living being, dog, cat, horse, that we are coming into contact with, as well as feeding back to the collective.
Well, that would remind us. Okay, another question here. This is an interesting one for those of us who are older, with older parents. How do I manage my father, who has deep dementia with profound depression, and I visit him every day? However enlightened I am, this is Natalie, I can't seem to negotiate. I can't seem to negotiate with him. I think that's a question there. So
I would send him love and thank him for being such an amazingly important part of your life. The other thing I would do on an incredibly practical level, and I learned this from just by chance watching a video years ago from a doctor, lady doctor, who was married to a doctor also. They were both elderly. Her husband had very serious dementia, didn't know who she was, couldn't tie his shoelaces, was having regular cognitive tests at the hospital. She heard somewhere that 2 tablespoons of organic coconut oil per day will dissolve the plaque in the brain that causes Alzheimer's and dementia. And so she started him on this regime, 2 tablespoons, not teaspoons. Within days, his cognitive function improved, in fact, improved so dramatically, he almost became back to normal. And rather cruelly, I thought, as a double check, she took him off the coconut oil to see what would happen, and he reverted.
Yeah, I think I've seen that video. Yeah. And it's at least 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, and it's amazing because she, being a doctor, was able to do the research to find out about that. It was
Correct.
a scientific study, so she did that. So yes, that's good.
In Indonesia, Polynesia, where they have tons of coconut oil, tons of coconuts, dementia scarcely exists.
Can you expand about how to become the observer?
Yeah, just really take a breath, step back and watch what's playing out, even if it's in your own personal life. Watch as if it's a movie. Just observe what, remove your emotion, because very often if it's a personal situation, we get very charged with some emotion. Just try and just say, for a few moments, I'm going to do this as a game. I'm going to take a breath and I'm just going to step back from this situation and watch it as if I was watching a movie. And see what a difference it makes. See what a difference it makes to how you see that situation, because astrology is brilliant at giving us this perspective, this objectivity that can really help us make better decisions and stop getting caught up in the reactivity. And see a question, do they drink the coconut oil? Well, it's kind of solid like Trex.
Drink it.
So you've got to heat it up, but it's pretty oily stuff. I mean, I make my own raw chocolate with it. So I have big chunks of raw chocolate every day made from coconut oil. So that's how I get my fix. And I cook in coconut oil, no other oil, because it's got a very high smoke point.
Yeah. I think even if you just pour it on your vegetables, unfried coconut oil, however imbibed, can our stuff be projected onto our animals and they take on an illness or injury on our behalf?
Yes. Yeah, yes. In fact, when I had 15 years of very serious kidney infection, all of my dogs got kidney problems.
Interesting. What's your opinion on people using drugs and alcohol to affect their lives?
No judgment. It's up to everybody to use their own discernment, etc. I think as we raise in frequency, we just want to do those things less and less. Yeah. We want less and less, tobacco, alcohol, meat, heavy, dense foods. We want lighter foods, more raw foods, and eventually the amount we eat will reduce as well, I think.
Interesting. Will children in the future be born with the 24th chromosome already activated?
I don't know the clinical answer to that, but boy, are they gifted.
They are. They're very special. There's some children I've heard lead their parents in meditation.
That doesn't surprise me. They are way ahead of us.
Jessica asks, do you know about light language and how it affects vibration?
I know people who speak it, and they are very high frequency beings. So yes, I think you have to be at a high frequency to access it and speak it.
If we're sensitive to solar flares and light photons, and the Earth is bombarded some days more than others, when our bodies are responding to and resounding directly with that vibration, how do we overcome the heaviness in our physicality on those days?
Yep, I suffer from it too, because I'm very EMF sensitive. Try, what you resist persists. So try and welcome these ingredients for our evolution in, because they are ingredients for our evolution. There's a wonderful chap on Facebook called Jason Esters, and his phrase for them was, they are stem cells for your soul. Brilliant. Stem cells for your soul. So however physically uncomfortable it is, and I sometimes have nights with 1 hour's sleep, and I've got 10 hours of work to get through the next day. Even if it's physically uncomfortable and you're frazzled and shredded, welcome them in, because they are part of your evolution. They're helping to reactivate the DNA.
Oh, That's wonderful. I
And
love
there's
that.
no rehearsal, you know, we're in it.
Yeah. Stem cells for your soul. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know about
Great.
stem cells. Yeah. Somebody saying they have similar problems with their mum who's negative, and I try to raise her vibrations with massage healing, coconut, and healing Reiki. I use coconut oil for everything. Well, that's a comment there. Okay. I pulled a comment earlier on, which is you don't do consultations, Pam, and somebody was working with astrology before who now retired. Is there a place, do you know a good place where we can find astrology for consultation has been asked? Are there people you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I stopped 3 years ago simply because it used to take me about 4 hours prep to do a session, which was 90 minutes. You know, there's a very big chunk of a day for one person. I absolutely love doing them, but, you know, I'm just working 7 days a week trying to help people in collective through this transformation. So I don't have time. A lady who did her master's course at the same time as me, US astrologer Kathy Rose, is excellent. She's world class. I've done some videos with her. You can see those on my YouTube channel. But alternatively, if you go to somewhere like the Faculty of Astrological Studies in London, they should have a professional astrology list that should be actually global, not just UK based.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a professional, what's it called? Professional Association of Astrologers, I think, have a list.
Okay.
But I simply just, you know, don't have time anymore, sadly. Yeah. Unless I learn not to sleep, maybe I should just use that sleeplessness to...
Or you could make a clone.
Yes.
With new technology.
Yes.
How would you advise people who are caught up in huge trauma, caught up in terror attacks and their aftermath, war, etc., when it's much harder to stand back from the situation?
Horrific. I mean, just absolutely horrific. Somebody's mentioned Heather Innsworth, my very good friend. She's stepping back from client work as well. That's why I didn't mention her. She, you know, she's got the same problem as I have. Absolutely horrific. And it's hard to know what to say about that because anything would sound trivial. But I think, you know, once they can be rescued from that situation, and again, the sooner we end the wars by creating a better world, the faster that's going to happen, is they are just absolutely immersed in love until they heal. By people who are very skilled and know how to handle that with PTSD, etc. There's no, you know, there's no easy answer to that. But I don't think, and although we listening to this call may not have experienced that severity of challenge, all of us in our lives have experienced pretty big challenges. Otherwise, I don't think you'd be on this call.
No. Somebody's asked, just scrolling back here, somebody's asked about, there's a lot of women on the call. Yes. How do we help raise the masculine to the same frequency?
Yeah, I think just talk to your partners, your friends, your brothers, and do it quite lightly to plant a seed. You know, you might just plant seeds by saying, do you ever think about XYZ? Or isn't it interesting that? And just, I've got a good friend who's on a different planet to me, and I just constantly sort of plant seeds, you know, don't you think that doesn't quite ring true? And what do you think about that? But isn't this wonderful over here? And what do you think about that? I kind of pose very simple questions to get him to think about the difficult stuff in the world, but also about the wonderful stuff. And actually, bless him, even though he's nailed onto a different timeline, I think even he is shifting now.
Mm-hmm. Somebody asked an astrology question about the meaning of Laniakea supercluster, Laniakea.
Yeah, the Laniakea supercluster. Yeah, I don't know a lot about it. It's a massive sort of super galaxy. It's in deep, deep space. And I personally don't know very much about it. I mean, all the planets I work with are not part of that. So that's certainly for me yet to be discovered in terms of its meaning. I mean, sometimes the best person to go to with this leading edge astrology, astrologically, is a chap called Philip Sedgwick, Sedgwick. He does very esoteric, way out there, obscure research on what's coming up in terms of new discoveries. And but I personally don't have any information on the on that supercluster at this point.
Somebody says that they're training to be a homeopath, and I'm starting to have clients with supervision. Some of the cases are so upsetting, it's hard not to get drawn into their energy. Can you offer any advice?
Yes, I think what I do before every session, apart from setting the intention, how is good for myself and for the client, is put yourself in a bubble of light and see that bubble of light as having a kind of mirror edge to it all the way around. And so you are still completely visible. You can see the client, they can see you, you can communicate, but you have a kind of boundary and you're in a bubble of light. And that can really help to protect you from absorbing too much, because when we're empaths, yes, we can very easily absorb.
Yes, and I suppose if you're training, you're going to be more susceptible because you haven't got the practice of doing that one-on-one with people yet, have you? So yes, good, bring that to attention. How can you find rising sign if you don't know the time you're born?
You can't. You need the time to get the rising sign. Find a good dowser to give you the time, and then get a competent astrologer to check it out by specific dates and events in your past, this life.
If a person's moon is in Aries, how can they soothe the tendency to spot danger and be on alert when this quality seems to be amplified by this astrological situation?
Yeah, it isn't just that the moon in Aries does that. It's usually tracking back to childhood where you had to be on alert. There was some hostility in the early childhood environment that programmed you into that hypersensitivity around any hostile situation. So it isn't just the moon in Aries, but again, I'd cultivate this eagle's perch stance. If anything's coming up, take a breath, step back, be objective, watch it like it's a movie before you react, because moon in Aries can be very impulsive, very reactive, very, jumping in too quickly. So give yourself that pause with the breath.
Jackie White's saying, when I posted a wish for March of love, joy and abundance, a well-known author put a comment, this will be a month no one in the world will ever forget. Do you agree with that, Pam?
Well, we're certainly building into it. Yeah, we're certainly building into it. Second half of March and April. I never know the events. I can describe the quality of energy and the timing and go back to historical cycles, what happened last time, but this is an incredibly powerful period. Second half of March and April are incredibly powerful in terms of truth coming to light, unexpected events, seismic activity. I mean, I've got a whole video, in fact, 2 videos on this. So I cannot identify the event, but yes, I think we are going to see by the end of this year a completely different world from the world we're in right now. And late March, April are one of the peak times for that to happen.
Which is Easter.
Right through that period.
Easter hits on like the 31st of March. So specifically, I know we've got all these tips. What should we do in that period? How should we brace ourselves? Should we be more proactive, more inner work?
I wouldn't brace. I would be in love and peace and grounding, stillness, drop into stillness. So when these events happen, whatever they are, although you may see them happening in the world, you are less likely to be personally directly affected by them. There's a sense of bubble wrapping. If you drop into stillness, drop into peace.
Well, a lot of the comments here are just saying how wonderful this has been. I think we've run out of questions, but it has been wonderful. And much to think about and much to feel.
Absolutely. So I hope it helped, because I rarely do these really kind of practical live things, so I hope it was a bit different tonight and helpful.
It was wonderful, and we'll send the comments to you, and everybody has really enjoyed it and said it's fabulous. So yes, here we are, grateful and fabulous. Yes, you are fabulous. We're very grateful. Thank you, Pam.
Loved it. Lots of love to everybody.